Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, climate change is the biggest challenge we face as a global community, and we know that it doesn't take time off. Year after year, the world is experiencing the increasingly damaging effects of a rise in global temperatures. Last year was on par with 2016, the hottest year ever recorded. We witnessed wildfires blaze across Australia, across Europe and the US West Coast. We saw flooding and locusts destroying crops in East Africa. And earlier this year, Cyclone Anna hit Fiji, sending thousands fleeing to evacuation centres. Through my work on COP26, I have witnessed the devastating impacts of climate change. Melting glaciers, sea level rises, crop degradation, deforestation, and pollution choking some of the world's greatest cities. And, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have spoken to the communities on the front line of the fight against climate change. I've spoken to them about how their lives have been disrupted, how their livelihoods are threatened, how their homes are at risk. We cannot go on as we are. So I want to thank the Chair of the Base Select Committee, the Honourable Member for Bristol North West, for opening this debate on COP26, which we all want to see as a decisive and positive moment in the battle against climate change. And he spoke with great eloquence, as have other Right Honourable and Honourable Members. And I want to thank my friends for Tunbridge and Malling, for Kingswood and Hitchin and Harpenden for their very kind words. And I also thank my honourable friend for Harwich and North Essex, and indeed other colleagues for their offer of support on the road to COP26. And I also thank the honourable member for Greenwich and Woolwich for offering the opposition support as we go forward. Because what we all agree, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that this is an issue which unites us. It unites us in a common mission to protect our planet and our people. Tackling climate change is a key priority for the government. We were the first major economy in the world to legislate for net zero by 2050, and since the year 2000, we have decarbonised our economy faster than any other G20 country. Last year, the Prime Minister set out his 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution, a plan to cut emissions, but at the same time to create high-value green jobs and turbocharge the economy. And as colleagues on both sides of the House have acknowledged, we've also set an ambitious and world-leading commitment to cut our own emissions by at least 68% by 2030 on the base year of 1990. And of course now, through our presidency of COP26, we have a unique opportunity to drive global ambition, but also action. Colleagues have raised a range of issues, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to focus on three of the key topics which have come up. The first, what are our aims for COP26? What are we planning to achieve? Secondly, do we have the resources to deliver? And how is the practical planning and logistics for the event progressing? Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I can tell the House that we have four key aims for COP26. We're asking nations to first to commit to global net zero and vitally, as colleagues have noted in this debate, to come forward with ambitious 2030 emissions reductions targets which align with net zero and keep the goal of limiting average global temperature rises to 1.5 degrees within reach. Second, to set out plans to urgently protect communities and natural habitats and to help them adapt to the damaging effects of climate change. Third, to agree funding to support these aims, making good on the $100 billion commitment in public finance that was agreed at Paris, and of course, also unleashing private finance. And I agree with colleagues when they say that this 100 billion figure is totemic. It is a matter of trust for vulnerable countries, for developing nations, and donor countries must deliver on this. And at the end of this month, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we will be holding a climate and development event, which will be a ministerial event attended by ministers from donor countries, from vulnerable countries, but it will also involve civil society, and we will talk about the issues around climate finance. Fourth, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we want to work to close off the outstanding elements of the Paris Rulebook and accelerate delivery of the Paris goals through collaboration between governments, businesses and civil society. My honourable friend, the member for Ludlow, mentioned Article 6. He is absolutely right. It is one of the items that we will have to close off, as well as timelines for submitting further NDCs, reporting transparency, and of course, delivering through the energy transition, nature and transport campaigns that we are running as part of COP26. And I would just say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that we have made progress to date. When the UK took on the COP presidency, less than 30% of global GDP was covered by net zero commitments. That figure stands at 70% today. And of course, this includes Japan, South Korea, the USA and China. And in December last year, the UK co-hosted the Climate Ambition Summit with 75 world leaders making concrete commitments to tackle climate change. But, as honourable members have noted, the UNFCCC NDC Synthesis report, which was published last month, demonstrates that we have much, much more to do when it comes to these near-term emissions reductions targets. Mr. Deputy Speaker, colleagues of course have rightly asked if we have adequate resources dedicated to the task in hand. In summary, the answer is yes. I'm supported by the full weight of the British government in this endeavour, with the Prime Minister leading from the front. He chairs the UK government's Climate Action Strategy Cabinet Committee, which sets the UK's path to net zero. And I chair the UK government's Climate Action Implementation Cabinet Committee, which sets the UK's delivery of its climate plans. This means there is full cabinet oversight of policy and delivery. Now, with regards to the resourcing of COP26, I can tell the House there are over 200 posts in the COP26 unit, and a number of departments have also created dedicated COP26 teams, including Her Majesty's Treasury, the Business Department and DEFRA. And in the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, all heads of mission have been instructed by the Foreign Secretary to make delivery of COP26 objectives a top priority. And they are supported by our overseas network of over 430 climate and energy attaches. This is the world's first diplomatic network dedicated to this agenda. And I, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of course, am now working full-time on COP26. I have personally engaged with ministers in over 50 governments, including recently with India's Prime Minister Modi, with US Special Envoy John Kerry, who was here on Monday for discussions with us, and China's Special Envoy for Climate Change, Minister He Zhenhua. And of course, we will work with like-minded colleagues around the world to deliver at Glasgow. I also speak regularly with negotiating group chairs and chief negotiators, the United Nations, development banks, civil society groups and business. And in recent weeks, I've also made a number of international visits where I have always felt well supported by the UK government network. Mr. Deputy Speaker, all in all, we are well resourced for COP. Turning to event logistics and planning, COP26, as colleagues have noted, will be the biggest international summit the UK has ever hosted. It might be useful if I explain to the House how this event will actually work. It will be delivered across 2 sites. The Scottish Events Campus will be the UN-managed space, and this will host the formal negotiations, and we'll see delegates from 197 parties come together, of course, alongside accredited observer organisations as well. On the other side of the River Clyde, in the Glasgow Science Centre, the UK government will host a platform for the general public and stakeholders to have their voices heard through events, exhibitions, workshops and talks that promote dialogue, awareness, education and commitments in the climate change space. And as part of our preparations, Glasgow City Council has launched a host city volunteer programme for COP26. I can tell the House that this has received an overwhelmingly positive response, with over 7,000 applications to date, far exceeding the 1,000 volunteers that we need. Now, my right honourable friend, the member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweedale will also be pleased to know that through the Together for Our Planet campaign, which we launched last November, we will work with partners to inspire the public across the UK to be more engaged in climate action in the run-up to COP26. I agree with him. We cannot have an event which is seen by the general public as an event where world leaders fly in and fly out without any connection to the lives of people across our country and indeed across the world. I've also established an international civil society and youth advisory council to support our COP preparations and to ensure that we deliver an inclusive COP. We are progressing planning for an in-person event with consideration of how we can best use technology to indeed increase inclusion and sustainability. Of course, in addition, robust contingency plans for the range of COVID-19 scenarios are being prepared so we can rapidly adapt if it were to prove necessary. My team does have regular engagement with the Scottish Government and Scottish operational delivery partners through a monthly operational delivery board. We have a joint delivery framework that has been agreed with partners, including the Scottish Government, endorsing an inclusive, all-of-United Kingdom approach to COP26. And I've also invited climate change ministers from the Scottish Government, from the Welsh Government and the Northern Ireland Executive to participate in a devolved administrations group to ensure effective engagement and collaboration on COP26. And I can confirm that the next meeting is scheduled for later this month. A number of colleagues have raised the issue of budgets. I can tell colleagues that discussions on costs for COP26 are currently ongoing and final budgets are yet to be confirmed. But let me be very clear with the House. We will ensure that the right resources are made available for this summit. Of course, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we also want to deliver the event in a manner that represents value for money for the taxpayer, and we are following robust procurement, assurance and peer review processes. We have also secured sponsorship to take the cost burden off the taxpayer. Our current principal partners are SSE, Scottish Power, Sky, Sainsbury's, NatWest Group, National Grid and Hitachi, and we are actively seeking more. We will ensure, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that this event is safe, it is secure, it is sustainable and it is inclusive, and above all that it leaves a lasting legacy in the United Kingdom, allowing Glasgow to flourish as the host city. Mr. Speaker, I very much welcome the interest from honourable members, from select committees and of course all party parliamentary groups that have shown interest in COP. I think that's right and proper, and I have said that I will engage as much as I can with parliamentarians and with all party groups and to work with them so that we can bring about success at COP26. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I do not underestimate the challenge of delivering on all our goals for COP26. And that is why we are putting the full weight of the UK government, working with partners around the world behind our efforts. And I also want to say that through our G7 presidency, and indeed through all the range of international events that happen between now and COP, I want to see that green thread of climate action running deep through all of them. Because as an international community, we must deliver at Glasgow, and we must deliver for the sake of our and future generations. Thank you.
Darren James.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the COP President for his full response.